I don't think I've ever been given leadership advice that was overrated. And the reason is because it's material somewhere and it's incumbent on me to figure out where the relevance is.
Welcome to Adapt or Die, Transformative Leadership Conversation, the show where top executives unpack the pivotal moments that force them to pivot or to perish. I'm your host, Andreas Pedersen, former tech CEO that turned leadership coach and founder of Leaders Adapt. My guest today might be the hardest person I know to put in a box, and that is exactly why I want you to listen. Michael Corwin is the founder and CEO of TrueView Advisor, a consortium of experts who guide companies through business transformation and right now, AI transformation. The simplest way he puts it, he is a fractional president who works for the CEO to get the entire C-suite rowing in the same direction. Across his career, he has been a consultant, a Wall Street broker, a Microsoft usability researcher, and a streaming pioneer who, years before Netflix existed, tried to get the major studios to launch their own streaming platforms. He has founded and run 3 companies of his own, with 2 exit along the way. Today, he is a fractional chief business officer and COO, and he one of the most generous connectors that I personally know. He is the force behind a very high prestigious local event here in Orange County and LA called Whiskey Wednesday, as well as another event which is called Thoughtful Thursday. He is a master at gathering high power, very successful entrepreneur into different roundtables and conversations, especially those leading in the age of AI. So today's question is this: when your value is so broad, the market does not even have a word for it, how do you lead? And how do you get help from others so you can lead more better in an age where managing humans and machines at the same time is becoming the norm? So let's get into it. Welcome so much for joining Adapt or Die, Michael.
Thank you for having me, Andreas.
So said again, you are a genuine hybrid: strategy, operations, go-to-market, partnership, M&A, AI. Your own shorthand is that you are a fractional president who gets the C-suite rowing in the same direction. Can you unpack that for us and the listeners?
I will do my best, but like you said, part of the problem is finding language that lands, right? Figuring out how the marketplace, and we all do it. In order to understand the world, we have to put the world in boxes that we, at an individual level, understand.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I, in my leadership roles, having had the opportunity to lead 3 companies from the top role, how do I now express what I do when I am not the CEO specifically? Very challenging. I cannot even for a moment pretend that I have found the precise language. I am working on it. But the bottom line is what I do is I help companies, CEOs in particular, get their whole company on a new operating system, one that allows them, in a sense, if you think of this as a metaphor, if you've ever gone to have a cardiac test, they put sensors all over you, including your head, your fingers, your heart, and then you run. And that can tell the cardiologist all kinds of information about what's going on in your body. It gives them a tremendous picture of what is, what's real. And that is what I do for companies. I help companies get a real-time, true picture of what's going on throughout the company. So if you think of the top of the company as a series of top of funnels, right? Where every company is a series of funnels. I say think of them as bathtubs, and different bathtubs interconnect with other bathtubs, right? Comes out the drain, and then you have more bathtubs connected to each other. But we have a final drain, and it's called net income. How, as a company, do you know what's actually flowing through your company at any given time? What connects? What creates throughput or choke points? I help companies understand all of that.
I love that. See, it was possible to explain it. We just needed a good metaphor. And for someone who has had heart issues and done many EKGs, I know the feeling of being connected completely. One thing you have said is that all technology, like you say that all technology transformations are fundamentally business transformations. What do leaders get backwards about business versus technology transformations?
Well, number one, it's so easy to think of technology. Remember, we were just talking about putting things in a box, right? Understanding things in their own box. And the fact of the matter is, in most industries, most leaders, be it the CEO or the CFO or the COO, they are not experts in technology. Historically, we have outsourced that because it's not our core competency. There are very rare people like yourself, Andreas, who actually are technologists who then become leaders.
Hmm.
Most of us make our way through the ranks because we have certain domain knowledge. Most people, frankly, become CEOs because they're great salespeople, really exceptional salespeople. They're the best salespeople in the organization. And that's a great reason for them to be the CEO. But a lot of times they don't actually understand the technology that enables their own business enterprise to stay cohesively connected to itself. And when we delegate that, we tend to then think, oh, all we need is new tech. But that's not true. We have to remap the whole organization. We have to remap everything we think about. We have to take it all the way back to the purpose of the company. And then we have to say, okay, here's the purpose of the company. And we then have to understand what's the business model of the company. Who are the people who are going to fundamentally change this? What new skills and expertise do they need? What then are the product requirements of the technology? Oh, but I skipped one. What are the business requirements of the technology, right? That's really, really critical. What are the business requirements of the technology? Then the product requirements, then the tech requirements, then we build the tech. That's the very last thing we do is build the tech. And I myself, and I know better, I skipped over the business requirements. I cannot tell you how many companies skip business requirements and race not to product requirements. They skip those too, and they go straight to tech requirements.
Yeah.
And they build themselves into cul-de-sacs.
Yeah.
This is why so many tech initiatives fall over. They may even be successful tech initiatives, right? The tech was built well, but it didn't service anything ahead of it that I just outlined. And these are all prerequisites for the next thing. Prerequisite, right? The tech is the last thing. It services everything that I mentioned above.
What is the one thing when you're working with these companies, Michael, and what's the one thing you tell the CEO never to compromise on in the context of everything we just talked about?
Never compromise on understanding the business model well.
Yeah. Amen.
You have to understand your business model very, very well, and your whole C-suite has to join you in understanding the business model well, because everything you do now with your people has to undergird the assumptions in your business model.
So many CEOs and founders miss this, Michael. Like I cannot, for listeners here, like please listen to when he says this. It is, I don't want to say S in, S out, but it's almost that, right? And if not everyone on the C-suite knows it, you have a major dilemma. How do you go about having such a conversation when you see that they're actually doing that, missing it?
For me, it's very easy. Any time that anyone within the organization, whether it's the CEO or they are having me speak to someone on the front lines, I always listen, right? Step one, listen, just listen. And I love to speak to people on the front lines because I will say to them, Who do you talk to when you have a question? Who resolves in your world the most problems? And they always have a ready answer because there's always that person, right? And then the more people you talk to, they know and they know and they know. And all these dots, they tend up revolving around the same people, right? Throughout the organization at different levels. For the CEOs, I love to ask the question. I love for them to differentiate. I don't know, Andres, if you went to grad school and had formal training. I did go to grad school. And when I went to grad school, the hardest class I ever took was one of the first classes I ever took, which was called research methods. The whole scientific method revolves around understanding the difference between an independent variable and a dependent variable. An independent variable is just that. It's a variable that doesn't have to be connected to something else. A dependent variable is inextricably linked to some predecessor. And every one of our companies is nothing but a series of dependent variable after dependent variable after dependent variable, all the way down to the final dependent variable called net income, profit.
Mm-hmm.
And unless we can draw a map of dependent variables all the way up to the top, obviously your very top variables will be independent variables, but they all have to funnel into dependent variables. And if you can't map that, you don't know your business. You fundamentally do not know your business, just like in science. If we can't prove that A equals B and B equals C, therefore C equals A, we don't have a proof. We don't know what is.
Dear listeners, you should pay attention here. This through line story, I've known Michael now for 4+ years, I want to say.
Yeah.
5 maybe, I don't know. Time flies, right? But you are always the forward thinker. We have a lot of people in our networks that are visionary. You are absolutely a visionary. You have started these different communities, networking events, other things to put the thinkers in the room. And you also have a history in your own career of seeing where the market is going before it gets there. So right now, and you just explained what a chief business officer does in an organization, and you have been doing this role for years. What is it like to be early to a category that doesn't have words yet?
Painful beyond measure. And the reason is that I am constantly having to pivot, relentlessly pivot. And when I find something that lands, to find that connective tissue and then keep arcing everything back to that connective tissue. It's not the fault of any party that I speak to that they aren't getting it. It is my fault. And it is incumbent on me to find the language, just like it's incumbent on me when I run an organization to delineate what is an independent variable and a dependent variable. The same thing is going on in my own ability to communicate. Yes, I'm early, but I have to be able to show what's an independent variable and what's a dependent variable so that others can see the through line. Because if I can't, and my dilemma is that my challenge is verbosity, right? Trying to explain too much and not being able to do it concisely, because too many people, they're on to the next thing in their own mind. It doesn't mean what I'm saying isn't true or valuable, but if I can't say it quickly and their brains are headed elsewhere, that's again my challenge, not theirs.
I love the fact that you always look inwards first as to what can I do to become better at something, and you don't put that on someone else. That's a very rare trade. I've done transformational work myself, Michael. I know how hard it is, especially when you want to tell the world. It's like, don't you see? Like I'm part of a group right now with CEOs that are not very pro AI. And I'm like, wake up, can't you see where the world is going? And they're always So now it's like people have this need of, and you mentioned it before, put it into one box. Like we have to put things into different boxes. And with someone like you, visionary, divergent thinker, can see a lot of different patterns, they might have you in a box. And now you
Yeah.
are basically saying, yeah, I'm in that box. I'm in this and this and this and this box. What I explain is how all the boxes interact with one another and why you should pay attention. So how do you resist being shrunk down to fit someone else's box?
Oh man, it is a challenge because there are plenty of people when I speak to them, they go, "Oh, you're a COO," and I say, "Yes, true, but I'm a strategic COO.
Mhm.
I'm not just somebody in the bowels of the organization who knows all the details, though that's true, right? Because every company, here's a sad truth. Every company is built on a gazillion details, and those details matter. They cannot be erased. They are. And that's just a reality. And lots of C-suite thinkers, they like to think that just give me the top line, just give me the top line. But the top line is always built on all the many, 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 many data points below that they are inerasable. Because as soon as you do, you just eliminate huge amounts of your company. And further, you don't actually know how to improve your company because you're not even looking at what you need to look at. And so they will say, Michael, you're in operations. You're an operations thinker. And I say, yes, but I'm more than that. I also understand finance profoundly. I write very detailed what if scenarios when I'm doing major deals. Like when I did the strategic partnership, when you go into an Apple store and you see on the wall the Apple Fitness
Mhm.
materials and what you can do with Apple Fitness, that all started with a strategic partnership between Beachbody, a company I was a senior executive at, and I was the driver of a strategic partnership with Apple. Um, that all came to exist because of what I was able to show Apple and what Apple understood even better than our own C-suite of the value of doing this strategic partnership. And it was all in the details. But when I wrote or created the financial model that would help understand it, I had cascading what if scenarios that were, I don't know, 20, 30 sheets deep, right? And when I was on the phone or a Zoom or even in the room with Apple, I could change one variable and I would know what the cascading impact was all the way through the whole deal. Did my counterparty do that? No, they didn't do their homework. And so I was very grateful. We ended up with a deal that was very good for Beachbody if Beachbody had been able to see the vision,
Mhm.
as well as Apple did, uh, and Apple does, right? It's still on the wall. We didn't we we didn't see the value as much as they did. They stepped away, we stepped away, however it goes. But they're still doing it. Everything we did with them, they're still doing. So why does that matter? You have a follow-up question.
I do have a follow-up question because what you're talking about, and I hope the listeners hear this, I define Michael as a very creative system thinker. And he sees the pattern, he connects the dot. It's don't put him in one box, see him as someone who is a thinker. You think like a CEO, to be honest, and like a founder. And now you're helping other founders see the same thing. So you are a person who can not only extrapolate the future based on what you experienced in the past, but you can also look around corner where you have never been before and imagine how it might look. And most people, they can do one, but not the other one. You can do both. So I want to pivot over a little bit, Michael, to talk about that you're master at building the room people want to be in. And you had already had a very successful high net worth investor community in Whiskey Wednesday. And we don't have to go into that right now, and you can correct me, but it's basically it's investors, and you built it to put capital together to link upstream and downstream capital, shorten the time to value, and lift the return for the founders and the boards guiding them, basically. So we'll park that there, and we might come back to it. But what I want to hear about, so you already have that, yet you decided to start a new room, which is Thoughtful Thursday, which is heavily AI focused, and I would say the best AI event in the LA Orange County area. What were you after? What did you see that no one else was seeing that triggered you, like, I need to put people in the room and talk about this?
A couple layers to it. One is that I had started using AI very shortly after ChatGPT came out. And I have a friend in the UK, Peter Swain, who he was an early adopter in the internet phase. He can actually code. I don't code. And so he built some companies based on code that were quite successful, and he had exits. But he started saying, wow, people need to learn this. I'm going to start doing a webinar to help people learn this. And so I started paying him right away,
Mm-hmm.
because I am not someone who loves to tinker.
Mm-hmm.
That's just not my makeup. He's more inclined, like, he will tinker, right? He will bash his head against the wall over and over and over to figure out how to make the tech work better. And so I started paying him and following what he was doing, and I could see, oh my gosh, this is going to be absolutely massive, massive in the way we automate operations. Now, I had the benefit with Web 1.0, part of what I was doing to go back in everyone's memory, Web 1.0 was more than a brochure site. For most companies, it was only a brochure site. For forward-thinking companies, they were actually turning the internet into a utility, whether that was internal communication, that's one form of utility, obviously external communication with respect to a brochure site. But now, if you can make that site do something, Bezos, brilliant, turn it into a utility where you could do commerce between companies or between an individual and companies. What we were doing on the utility side that was so valuable is that we were, well, let me think of all the things that we did. Do me a favor, Andreas. I had a point. Let's rewind together. When I started talking about that, you'd asked a question, and this was in reference to the question.
Yeah. So
The
what
building the room, right? Building the
you are
room.
building the room, you're
Yeah,
seeing,
okay.
what
So,
is it that you're seeing? Because the through line here is, Michael, is the following. You see the pattern before anyone else sees it. You see the potential before 99.9% of people see it.
right.
And your way of
Here,
attacking it
here
is,
was the point, is that the internet was about doing what we could with package software, which was to begin to do automations
Mhm.
between functions within companies or within companies. And the internet allowed us to do more automations. And so if we could automate that which was repeated, 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 we didn't need humans to do all that same repeated, repeated, repeated work. Now with AI, we can actually train AI to go beyond what we were doing with software, and we could compress the time that we were having software do the repeated work. And I could see that a number of years ago, right? That we were going to get more of these automatable moments, not just through big systems, which are very important, but even down to individual systems. Like, here's an example. If you use the same phraseology repeatedly in the way you write something, if you just have two buttons on your keyboard, in my case, a Mac, Command R or Command I, I'm inventing here. Those I use those, and it types half a sentence. If in 2 keystrokes you've just eliminated the need to type 30 characters,
Mm-hmm.
you've saved time. And if you're doing this all over the place throughout your organization, the amount of time that you're saving is massive. And our most precious resource, coming back to the reason why I did Whiskey Wednesday uh, with my co-host Edmund Wong, the reason we invented it is that time, there's many valuable resources in the world. We have human ingenuity, we have capital, and we have time. There are more, but those are the big ones, right? And so if we could, with Whiskey Wednesday, save capital, and preserve time, then we had more capital and more time to invest in human ingenuity. That's the whole thesis. And if you have more capital and more time to invest in human ingenuity, you get more value in that same function of time with that same function of capital. And so that's the thinking behind it. And so within our own companies, the thinking is exactly the same thing. We still have human ingenuity. We still have capital, because every time we have an expense, that reduces our capital. Every time we take longer to do something, that reduces our capital. But most importantly, it reduces our time, our function of time. And so if we can get more activity in shorter functions of time, we actually yield more profitability. And
Yeah.
so this is going back to the business model. You said, Michael, what would you say? I'd say, think in terms of your business model and how does human ingenuity throughout the company, not just at the top, not just with your engineers, not just with your product developers, whether you're in fashion or you're in media or you're in software or you're a milk producer or you create flooring for people. It doesn't matter what, or you're in construction. It doesn't matter what it is. Human ingenuity, capital, time. If we can, so that's the thinking behind it. And what's our business model, right? If
Mhm.
we're always relating those things and we're thinking about those things and how can we improve each of those 3 elements throughout the organization, we will get more yield.
So I want to shift. So I want to build upon this, or I want to pivot this conversation a little bit because we're talking about yield. We're talking about not having humans repeating the same mundane tasks. We're talking about how AI comes in. One concept that you and I have talked about that comes from you is that you have said that good leadership is about to be completely rewritten and that we will be leading humans and machines at the same time. Can you paint that picture for us of where things are going and why is that such a relevant conversation right now?
Yes. So call it 6 years ago. I'm just
Mm.
inventing. We had humans and machines within companies. And the machines were always human directed, right? Because we didn't have some of the software that we have now. But the software we're building that we call AI has more and more autonomous like attributes involved. We're
Mm-hmm.
still not there yet. And from my point of view, we're a long way from it. And from my point of view, that's a good thing. But in the meantime, as software, through rules or whatever we put in place, whatever guardrails we put in place, can be more and more autonomous, it can be instructed to do more and more kinds of work that we would have otherwise have instructed humans to do
Mm-hmm.
from the top or the middle or the bottom, right? Throughout the organization. Now, throughout the organization, we're going to be having humans that will instruct the machines to do things, but then the machines will turn around because of this more autonomous like nature. Those machines will now instruct humans to do things. Why? because that's what's happening in the chain of events. It's a chain of events situation. It's not because we value machines more than humans or humans more than machines. I would hope that everyone values humans way,
And let's
way
keep
more
with
than
human
machines.
dignity still.
Yes. Um,
But it's
and
fascinating. What does it mean from a leadership and culture perspective in these organizations going forward?
well, what it means is I think we need to put to be it's hard to be a good leader, period.
Hmm.
Most people that have leadership roles have just that, leadership roles, but it doesn't mean they're a good leader. And if people, their opinion never got back to us who have leadership roles, we would probably learn in an anonymous nature that we fall really, really short, right? But as long as the company's getting results, we attribute that to great leadership. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's great leadership. It could be more of an effective business model than having anything to do with great leadership. It could be that we're in a fortunate sector of the economy that's in higher demand,
Yeah. But what,
right?
Michael, what do you tell a leader that is clinging on to the old leadership playbook and that is scared of this new world? What would you tell them?
I would tell them that that fear of that nature is typically, from my view, a function of familiarity. And the less familiar they are with the new software that we call AI, the more fearful they will be, and also the more behind they will fall because they do not understand how they can get more positive, human dignity giving um, life into their company, leveraging these new tools.
So, what's the mindset shift that these leaders C-suite have to do that separates the leader who will thrive in the age of
Ah,
AI versus the ones that won't?
well, you hit on it, right, Andreas? It all starts with a new mindset. And so to arc back to something that I said earlier, in the old days of 6 months ago, in the old days of 12 months ago, we as people with leadership roles, we could delegate
Hmm.
to people with certain skills and talents
Hmm.
in the technical domain. Now we can't. We have to become absolute students of it all because we have to understand what the technology is and is not inherently capable of. And you can't do that until you yourself become familiar with the technology. Doesn't mean you'll ever be able to produce the technology, but you have to become familiar with the technology so that you understand the capabilities, so that you also understand how humans interact with the technology. And the reason that how humans interact with the technology is so important is because you still need to build a culture for the humans, but you also have to build a culture that includes the robots, includes the machines, both, because you have to lead both. You have to instruct both concurrently. And you have to understand and I didn't invent this, you have to understand the implications, and there can be many implications. Implications can be good, implications can be bad.
Hmm.
Beyond implications, you now have to understand what are the downstream impacts of the implications. And some of the downstream impacts in certain categories will be good, and certain downstream impacts of that same implication will be bad. And so the more we as leaders can put humans at the forefront of how we think about this, and the more that we can think about what are the actual implications and what are the actual downstream impacts, good or bad, the better that we can chart where we have to go as an organization. And not only that, the more we have to retool, the better we understand those things, it then gives us the map for how we retool our cultures to be actually able to carry that out. One of the things that we're going to find is that if we focus on the technology and we don't focus on the people and the culture around it all, the more it collapses, right? The more work that we have to put in things, the more capital that we have to spend, the more time that we have to spend, usually overcoming people's fear, right?
Fear of
They're
change.
of course they're going to be afraid,
Yeah.
right? And there are people when I go in, Andreas, to help them with their companies. There are people within the companies that absolutely want nothing to change. Why? Well, because they haven't been found out yet, right? They are living a cushy life. They're getting overpaid, they're underworking, and they're under-delivering, and few people know it because the company's not properly censored to detect it. But once,
This is what you do.
yeah, this is
You
exactly
expose
what I
it
do,
and you
right?
drive the change.
That's exactly right. And so um, it's all about getting the incentives right throughout our organization. We have to understand how to get the incentives right. Uh, if you show me your comp package, I can show you the incentives. I can show you what you're going to end up selling and not selling, right? People always gravitate to what the incentives um, point them toward.
So I think that's a great ending on. We're going to go into something called lightning round and hot seat, and we started out, Michael, with you saying that this putting one box, and it's hard to sometimes define what a chief business officer is and the fractional work you do. So in the lightning round, I will ask you very short questions, and I want super short answer, and then I will ask you last question, and then that's the end of the show. So short answers now, okay? This is going to force you, and I'm still a leadership advisor, coach, so I'll have to take this opportunity to see if I can make it work. Best room you have ever been in, and why?
Oh, great question. Best room I've ever been in. I'll tell you. Best room I've ever been in was dinner with Chris Couch, who was a fraternity brother of mine, and John Couch, his father. Uh, his dad would periodically come to Penn and
Remember
say,
short
Chris,
answers.
oh, best room, dinner with John Couch,
And a
who
very
was
short why. Very short why without tangents. What did he teach you?
best friends with Steve Jobs, and he taught me how to make a company successful.
Boom, right there. The most overrated piece of leadership advice you ever were given.
Overrated. I don't think I've ever been given leadership advice that was overrated. And the reason is because it's material somewhere and it's incumbent on me to figure out where the relevance is.
That's what a person who is constantly in growth and will always be learning answers, and few people would, Michael. So don't underestimate the power of that reply. One AI habit or tool you're into right now.
Tool, Claude, by a million miles.
Yeah.
And an AI habit that I am in is I am constantly training Claude my user preferences at the universal level.
Perfect. Most people don't know the end of this sentence, so I'm going to give the beginning and you're going to fill it in. And if you don't, I'll just add it, but then I'll add the question. Jack of all trades, master of none, but better than most at one.
Yes, better, better than a lot of folks' domain knowledge now, because the value of that knowledge is going to zero.
Yeah.
AI will know most of it.
So in the age of AI, you being the jack of a trade, that is the jack of all trades for you, and is a master of all. Finish this sentence.
By the way, I didn't come up with that. I give a friend of
Okay.
mine, Fernanda Carapina, credit on that one because it's true. The value of knowledge is headed to zero,
Yeah,
but the value of expertise uh, 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 overall is going up. Our experience is going up.
exactly. Finish the
Judgment,
sentence, Michael.
judgment, value of judgment going up.
I hear you. The finish the sentence. The leader who win in the age of AI are the ones who.
Are the ones who become students of the game.
I
You
love it.
have to become a student of the game.
So now we're going to try to do a challenge for you. So I did not prepare you for this. A CEO says, my C-suite isn't rowing in the same direction and I can't figure out why. Michael, you got 60 seconds. Where do I start?
CEO, is it due to internal conflict? Is it due to your incentive structure? Is it due to your culture within your organization? Is it due to the fact that you may have a product that's falling in value in the economy? I need to be able to identify what the key factors are.
I love the fact that you didn't cookie cutter it, but you rather said, let me come in and ask you these questions and we'll figure it out. So, Michael, this was very interesting. You and I can keep talking about how things are changing and how the world will look like for a long time. But for now, I want to say thank you so much for doing this podcast. What I love about this story is that you see the early things that are coming to a future that many people won't see, or they are just waking up to it. And you have already built the room, discussed this for a long time with others, and collectively been building up this community mindset and power around something while the rest of the world is just catching up. And I think that is fascinating. For the listeners, if you want to reach out to Michael, I think you should do it for a few reasons. He just answered it. If you want clarity to why your C-suite is not all rowing in the same direction, that's one of them. He will get you the answer. Number two, he sees the future and he sees around corners where no one else have been. You need that skill set. And third, if you need to know more about AI and where things are going and should be going in your organization, Michael, where can the listeners reach you?
Feel free to reach out to me at trueviewadvisors.com.
Awesome.
And my personal email address, mcorwin@trueviewadvisors.com. Just shoot me an email.
And they can also find you on LinkedIn, and you should be following him there. For the rest of the listeners, I want to thank you so much for listening to Adapt or Die and this episode with Michael Corwin. If today's conversations helped you think differently about how you lead, how you connect, please share it with another leader who needs to hear this. Today was extremely value-packed, so please share it with a leader out there. Log into Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star rating so others also can discover the show. Do the same on Spotify or on YouTube. It's all up to you. For show notes, free resources, coaching details, visit leadersadapt.com. And remember, in leadership, we adapt and thrive, or we don't survive. And this episode definitely proved that. Until next time, thank you. Bye.